Hey, good morning, guys. Um, I was reading Chambers this morning, and I was reminded of when I was a kid, and we used to have motorcycles, and we would ride uh, out into the woods and out into the quarry, and we'd ride down the railroad tracks, and we would. I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania, and we always knew that we could go, a pretty good ways, and we could ride until the gas ran out because we had a reserve. And basically reserve was just at a certain point in the tank, the pickup tube for the gas. It couldn't reach the gas anymore, and so you flip the switch on the bottom of the tank, and now the bottom part of the tank, now you were on reserve, and you could tap into the bottom part of the tank, and you knew you had to get back to refuel. So that reserve tank was something that in your it was always just a fallback. It was a fallback, and so this morning Chambers actually, that's one of the things that kind of stood out to me in his study, talking about a reserve tank. The It's February 25th, by the way, and the passage is from 2 Corinthians 12:15, which is what we did yesterday, but this is the second part of it, or I think it's the second part of it. It's though the more abundantly I love you, the less I be loved. In NIV, I had a question mark. If I love you more, will you love me less? Question mark. And the point that Chambers is making today is this idea that, and what he's been dealing with for kind of weeks now, is being spent, being poured out, being bread broken and wine poured out. And the way we show our love for Christ is to love people. So by loving people, we express the love we have for Christ. So because obviously Christ is not physically here, we can't serve him directly, and so the challenge then becomes, how do I serve Jesus in a tangible way? Well, he made that very clear in the commandments that he gave, the parable of the Good Samaritan, if you will. And so he has made it clear that the way we love him is to um, love others. Matthew 25, if you're not familiar with it, Matthew 25 is an interesting passage, and it talks about the kind of the judgment seat, and when people say, "Lord, Lord," um, and he says, they say, didn't we do this in your name? Didn't we do this in your name? Didn't we cast out demons? And he says, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Because the sheep on his right, he says, "When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was in prison, you visited me. When I was cold, you clothed me." I can't. Maybe that's not one of them. And then he says to the goats on his left, "You didn't feed me. You didn't visit me." And they say, "Lord, Lord, but didn't we do this in your name?" And he says, "I don't even know you." And so it's kind of this interesting paradox, actually, because those people are saying, "Hey, we did things for people." Um, and Jesus says, "I don't know you." And so I guess when Chambers talks about this being poured out, and I'm sorry, I'm not getting too much into this, into the study this morning, but I'll read here one part of Chambers. He says his idea, Jesus, Jesus, is that we serve him by being the servants of other men. Jesus Christ out socialists the socialists. He says that in his kingdom, that his greatest shall be the servant of all. And back to the reserve thing, all that is an indication that we are serving God with a reserve. He's saying giving conditions to our service, saying, "Oh, I'll go, yeah, yeah, but what if he wants me to go and I don't make much money, or the climate is crazy, or oh Lord, don't send me to Africa," those kinds of things. The being broken bread and poured out wine is throwing all of that to the wind, if you will, and saying, "I don't want to serve with a reserve," thinking that, "Oh, I'll always hold something back, always hold something back." And that was the point of my example there of the motorcycles, always holding a little bit in reserve and saying, "I'm not willing to be poured out completely." and be a servant of all. And so we'll talk more about the paradox that I was bringing up. We'll talk more about it in future days, but this paradox of how can the men in Matthew 25 say, Lord, Lord, didn't we do this? Didn't we do that? And he says, depart from me. What's the distinction between truly serving men as if we're serving Christ and then serving men in a way that Jesus would look at it and say, no, it was all trash. The things that you did don't count. So we'll that'll be a little bit of a cliffhanger for you. You guys have a great day.